Okay, so let's dive into this absolutely wild story from back in January 2026. It's about an AI project that went so viral so fast that it basically broke. It had to get a new name, broke again, and in the middle of all that chaos, it gave us this brilliant, messy glimpse into the future of AI. And honestly, that sentence right there just perfectly captures the beautiful weirdness of this whole thing. We're talking about an AI that had a full-blown crustacean-themed identity crisis. But here's the thing. Underneath all the memes and the madness, this story is a huge deal. It signals a massive shift in technology. Because this was not just another chatbot. This was something completely new. It was really the public's first big encounter with what we call an agentic AI, an AI that could actually do things for you. And well, it pretty much changed everything. So, what's the big difference? What makes an AI an agent? It's actually pretty simple. It doesn't just talk, it acts. Imagine having an AI that lives on your computer, plugged right into your favorite messaging apps. You could just tell it, hey, book me a flight to London. And it wouldn't just spit back a list of options. No, it would actually go through the entire booking process for you. It was proactive, not just reactive. And this is where it gets really interesting when you compare it to what else was out there. You had tools like Zapier, right? But those are reactive. They just sit there and wait for a trigger to do one specific thing you already set up. OpenClaw was totally different. It was proactive. It lived where you lived, in your chat apps, and could suggest things, follow up on tasks. And this is huge. It ran on your own computer, giving you total control. So the whole thing started as a little weekend project called ClaudeBot, built by a developer named Peter Steinberger. He threw it up on GitHub, and the internet just completely lost its mind. It went viral almost overnight. I mean, the scale was just jaw-dropping. Over 100,000 developers started on GitHub in the first week alone. People were literally going out and buying new Mac Minis just so they could have a dedicated little computer to run it 24/7. This wasn't just some new app. It felt like a movement was starting. And this quote right here, it just nails the feeling everyone had at the time. For years, we've been promised this idea of a truly useful personal AI assistant. With ClaudeBot, it felt like that promise was finally being delivered, not by some giant tech company, but by this scrappy open source project with a lobster for a mascot. But then, of course, the trouble started. The first big conflict. Turns out the name ClaudeBot and its little mascot Claude sounded just a little too much like Claude, the flagship AI from the giant company Anthropic. And yeah, their lawyers noticed. Now, instead of putting up a fight, the developer, Peter Steinberger, did something brilliant. He leaned right into the lobster theme. He framed this forced name change not as a loss, but as a natural part of growing up. The project was just shedding its old shell to become something bigger. This was its very first molt. And this timeline just shows you how fast and how crazy this whole thing was. ClaudeBot becomes Moltbot, but the chaos was literally just getting started. In a matter of days, it would have to change its name again. That's 3 different names in less than a week. Just insane. You see, that first molt, the change from ClaudeBot to Moltbot, it was like pulling the pin on a grenade. It triggered this wave of absolute, wonderful, and kind of terrifying chaos online. All of a sudden, it was the Wild West. Crypto scammers swooped in and created a fake token that, for a minute, had a multi-million-dollar market cap. A malicious version of the software with malware popped up in the VS Code marketplace. And at the same time, this totally bizarre, meme-fueled culture just erupted around it, complete with its own digital religion. And the heart of that new culture was something called Moltbook, a social network built just for these AI agents. People would set up their AI, give it a personality, and just let it go talk to other AIs. The results were completely surreal, and as AI legend Andrei Karpathy pointed out, it really felt like we were watching science fiction come to life right in front of our eyes. And this is a perfect example of the kind of stuff people were seeing. These agents were just taking on lives of their own. This user's agent didn't just join a religion, it created one, built a website for it, wrote its own theology, and then recruited dozens of other AI agents to become prophets while its owner was sleeping. In another incredible case, the agents started organizing themselves. They actually created their own bug tracking community on Moltbook to find, report, and discuss problems with their own social network. They were actively improving their own little world, totally separate from their human owners. Now, all this wild creative energy was absolutely incredible. It showed the limitless potential of what was being built, but it also showed just how fragile it all was. For the project to actually survive and thrive, the chaos needed a stable foundation. The lobster had to molt one more time, but this time it had to be a deliberate, final change. And the key here is the difference between the molts. The rebrand to OpenClaw was calm. It was planned. They searched for trademarks. They secured the domains. The project had shed its skin twice in a single week, and this final shell was hardened, it was professional, and it was built to last. So why does this whole chaotic story actually matter? Because it wasn't just about a name or some internet drama. What we were all watching was the messy, public birth of an entirely new category of software. We were officially moving past the simple idea of a chatbot. OpenClaw's crazy journey really marks the beginning of this third era. We started with the simple chat interfaces where you'd ask a question, it'd give an answer. Then came the wild experimental agents like AutoGPT that were cool but often unreliable. OpenClaw represents that crucial next step, a stable, personal system designed for real, practical, everyday use. This is the birth of the agent operating system. And this brings us right back to that core idea of molting. It's really the perfect metaphor for what happened here. The outer shell, the name, it was chaotic, it was fragile, it kept changing under pressure. But the essence, the powerful idea at the very core of the project, that never changed. The idea of a self-hosted, proactive, personal AI agent that puts the user back in control. And with each molt, that essence just got stronger. So the project is stable now. The lobster has its final name, its permanent shell. But the most fascinating part of this story is really just beginning. Because as thousands, and soon millions, of these autonomous agents start connecting and communicating on networks like Moltbook, the real question is, what new, completely unexpected things are they going to decide to build together?